Welcome to Heroes Have Wings, the podcast that gives a voice to the unsung heroes of Army aviation. I'm your host, Jason Santiago. For the Army aviators, crew chiefs, and flight medics who put it all on the line in the heat of battle, this is their opportunity to share untold stories of courage, sacrifice, and unbreakable will. From their beginnings to the battlefield, you hear about their hardships, the moments of doubt, and how they overcame impossible odds to save lives. These warriors didn't just fight for survival, they put others above themselves, embodying the true spirit of heroism and selfless service. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Heroes Have Wings. Welcome back to Heroes Have Wings, where we spotlight the extraordinary journeys of those who dedicate their lives to service and resilience. I'm your host, Jason Santiago. Today's guest, Troy Halfhill, is a testament to what it means to push beyond the ordinary. Born and raised in Ohio, Troy grew up immersed in values of hard work and adventure, earning the rank of Eagle Scout before embarking on a 21-year career in the United States Army. From Fort Sill to Wheeler Army Airfield and beyond, Troy served with distinction, earning accolades like Angel on the Battlefield Award, the Order of St. Michael, and the Order of Military Medical Merit. Now a paramedic, he's translating his military experience into life-saving care for his community. But when he's not answering the call, you'll find him fishing, boating, or perfecting his homemade hot sauces. Troy's story is one of loyalty, grit, and unwavering drive to the best version of himself. Troy Halfhill, welcome to Heroes Have Wings.
Glad to be here.
Excited to see you, man. I haven't seen you in, I'd say, 11 years. I think 2013 is the last time I saw you.
Yeah, probably about that time.
Yeah, man, we're going to get caught up. Before we get started, there's one thing I love to do here on Heroes Have Wings. It's called Quick Hits. So I'm going to ask you two things. You just pick one. If it's both, then it's both. Any questions on that?
Oh.
All right, brother. Coffee or energy drinks?
Coffee.
City life, country living?
Country living all the way.
Summer heat, winter cold?
Winter cold.
Movie or books?
Movies.
Dog person, cat person?
Both.
Beach vacation or mountain retreat?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Probably the beach.
Wake up early, stay up late?
Wake up early.
Action movies or comedies?
I'm good with both.
All right. Camping or road trip?
Camping.
Texting or calling?
Texting.
Nice. How's life been treating you now that you're a civilian?
Oh, man, it's amazing. Yeah. I thought the transition would be a little bit harder than what it was, but it's been pretty amazing so far.
Did you get about 10 years of your life back when you left the Army?
The amount of stress that I don't have transitioning over, I just feel healthier, better, more energy. It's crazy.
Yeah, man, it is crazy. I tell everybody when I retired from the Army, I got 10 years of my life back overnight. It was crazy. So I know you're feeling the same thing. So let's get started. Tell us how it was growing up and where you grew up. How do you pronounce the town you grew up in?
Bradner, Ohio.
Bradner, Ohio. Okay, perfect. So what was your family dynamic like?
Grew up out in the country. Mom and dad worked midnight, so I didn't see him as much, but he always tried to make it to like our sporting events and scout. He was our scoutmaster for our Boy Scout troop. Parents were super involved in pushing us to be our best. Dad always said, if you don't get A's and B's, you're not playing sports. It's kind of a driving factor to do well in school, because I like doing sports, and I was in sports and band and choir and all the activities when I was growing up.
All right, Troy. So are your parents still together today?
Sure are. They just celebrated their, I can't do math, 46th wedding anniversary in August.
Holy moly, 46 years? That's wonderful. So your parents' relationship, how did that help you become the young man, become the young man joining the Army and the man you are today?
They always pushed me to strive to be my best, and to um, be a good man for my family, for my friends, the people around me.
Yeah.
And they set a great
So
example.
who's one of the biggest influences in your life growing up?
Um, both my parents. One of the guys that probably influenced me the most going into a science degree when I went to college was Coach Sugar. He was my cross country coach in junior high, and then he was my like chemistry science teacher throughout high school, and just an all around great man, great human being. And he made chemistry and the sciences easy to learn. But he was just a great role model.
Now, your relationship with your dad, what was that like?
It was a good relationship. He was always around when we needed him to be around.
Yeah.
I remember when I was in high school, I was at a wrestling tournament. He worked about 30 minutes away from where I was wrestling. That it was a dual meet tournament, and I got sent out against a guy that had gotten sixth in state the previous year. I had no idea my dad was there until the match started, and then I could hear him because up in the crowd, and then I ended up winning the match. And
Nice.
yeah, he was definitely my biggest supporter that day.
How do you think your dad being present in your life, how important was that to you now that you're a father?
Super important. I think having the nuclear family and having the parents stay together, and if they don't end up together, just being present, the both parents being present in the children's lives is super important. And there's been some studies shown that having both parents will increase your chances of success in life.
Agreed. How was your relationship with your mom and that dynamic?
Pretty great. She was always there for us. She supported me 100%. Whatever me and my brothers decided to do, she was always there. More or less filling the role of both parents if my dad wasn't available because he was at work. But he or she was always there, always supportive and pushing us to do what we love to do.
Was your mom a stay-at-home mom, or did she work as well?
Nope, she worked throughout my whole childhood. She just retired in February.
Nice.
Yep.
So your mom worked, took care of the family, was a present mom, took care of dad, and did all those good things, right?
Yep.
That's good stuff, man. I love to hear stories like that. So how was it growing up in your hometown? You said the country life. Well, what was a normal day for Troy?
Normally it was get up, go to school, usually miss the bus because I slept in or whatever. If I was in elementary school, I would walk to school, which sucked because it was about a mile away. Had to cross a busy highway. But go to school, come home, do my homework, hang out with friends. Had a good friend that lived right down the road from me, so we'd ride bikes or shoot BB guns or whatever, and just get into normal mischief as a kid.
When did you realize you wanted to join the military?
It was always in the back of my mind, but my first and foremost goal was to go to Ohio State and be a vet. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a veterinarian growing up since I was like 4. And when I was in high school, one of my best friends was joining the Army, and he was like, "Hey man, why don't you go talk to the recruiter with me because I'll get a promotion out of it?" And I was like, "Okay, sure, no problem, man." So I went down to his recruiting office, talked to the recruiter. One of the first things he asked me was, "What would get you to join the Army?" And I said, "The money for college would be the only thing that would get me to join the Army right now." And this dude cussed me up one side and down the other. And I was like, "Well, go fuck yourself. I'm not ever going to join the Army now because of you."
Yeah. So real quick, why did he cuss at you? That's odd.
This is pre 9/11. This is like 2000 when this happened.
Okay.
And he thought that anybody joining the military should do it out of a duty to serve their country. And that should be the
Nice.
only reason why you join the Army, and not for the other benefits that come with it. Dude
Wow.
was class A, 100% great person, and sarcasm all through that.
I was gonna say he doesn't sound like a good recruiter. That's why the Army and the military creates those incentives, because not everybody wants to join the military for those reasons. For
Yep.
him to be a dipshit like that, I mean, that's crazy, man.
Yep.
All right, I mean, but go ahead. So he cusses you out, you leave. What happens next?
Yeah. So I didn't do so well in college. Ended up leaving in the middle of my junior year.
Okay.
And
And this is at Ohio State, right?
yep, at Ohio State. So left in the middle of my junior year, right before the spring semester started.
Mhm.
And I was like, shit, I got to do something with my life. I've got to
Yeah.
be able to turn myself around and do something. So I went to a different recruiter. Went and talked. It's kind of funny. Was walking out of the recruiting station, and he just kind of looks at me. He goes, "Hey man, you want to join the Army today?" And I was like, "Actually, I was coming to talk to you guys." He was like, "Oh shit, that actually worked." Uh, so he was like, "I'll be right back. I'm gonna go grab a drink. If you just want to go and tell the big dude in there that your Staff Sergeant Klein's recruit." I was like, "All right, sure, no problem." So I walk in, find this gigantor dude. He was a fister, if I remember right. Find this dude, say, "Hey, Staff Sergeant Klein said I'm his recruit." And he goes, "All right, well, have a seat over there." So I sat down and waited for him to come back. Kind of explained to him my situation, what I wanted to do. And he goes, "Well, let's see how smart you are first. Take the practice ASVAB and we'll go from there." And I was like, "Okay." So I sit down and do the practice ASVAB, get a 98 on it. He's like, "Man, you sandbagging motherfucker." Because I was
You
telling
got
him
a
that,
98 on that?
yeah, on the practice.
Damn.
And
Okay.
so he's like, "All right, man, we'll get you anything you want." So what I wanted was, I wanted to go to Alaska because I've always wanted to visit Alaska. So I was like, "I want Alaska. I want you to pay off my college uh, debt, and I want to be a medic." And he was like, "Well, I can get you Alaska for sure. I could probably get you medic, and I can get your debt paid off. So in the order, we're going to go for your college debt, we're going to go for Alaska, and then we'll go for medic." Okay, no problem. I go home. I go to MEPS. Go home. I'm sitting around the house one day, just basically waiting to go off to basic training because I told him I wanted to get out of there as soon as possible. He was like, get me shipped off was in 6 weeks, and that recruiter that had cussed me out calls me out of the blue, and he was like, "Hey man, I just wanted to see how college was going for you." And I was like, "Oh, not so great." He goes, "Oh, really? Have you thought about joining the Army?" And I laughed at him. I said, "Well, I just got back from MEPS." And he starts getting mad again.
Wow. This
And
dude has no emotional control, man.
none whatsoever. He's got to be getting close to the end of his trail too, trying to make those numbers. And so he's like, "Well, who put you in?" I gave him the dude's number, or told him who put me in or whatever. Not his number, but I told him where I went. And he calls up my recruiter and cusses him out for stealing his recruit. And then my recruiter informs him, "No, he came to me because you were a jackass." He sought me out. I didn't go seek him out. And you can go fuck yourself, buddy.
That dude, man, it's amazing the different types of personalities that we meet in the military,
Yep.
man. Especially as a recruiter, this is the first experience we're having with the Army, and you're gonna be an asshole about it?
Right.
He had to be probably the worst recruiter in the world.
Wasn't a good one, that's for sure.
So, how did your parents feel about you leaving college?
Oh, they were not happy. um,
Is that why you had to leave fast?
yep. I knew I had to
Okay.
get out of there.
Okay.
But I told him, I was like, "Hey, look, this is going on. I feel bad about all these other kids that are younger than me. I'm seeing it on the news, going over there and getting killed and serving their country. And I want to do the same, not get killed, obviously, but
Yeah.
I want to serve my country. And it's only going to be 4 years, and then I'll
Mhm.
get out and I'll go back to school." Well, that didn't happen.
Let me say something real quick. And I laugh because we all started that way, right? I'm gonna do my 4 years and get out. All of us. I mean,
Hmm.
even me. I'm gonna do my 4 years, get out. And the crazy thing is we're in the military during combat time. So we were not a peacetime army at the time. And we
Nope.
all a lot of us just stayed in. I mean, I don't know if it was the addiction to the adrenaline. I don't know what it was, but even with me, I had an opportunity to get out in 2003. I stayed in, knowing I was going to Iraq. So that's crazy how we all have that same story. What was your parents' reaction when you told them, "All right, I'm joining the army"?
Initially, it was shock. I had already talked to the recruiter. I had already basically had a trip planned to MEPS and all that, and it went from shock to um, acceptance. And my recruiter is going to drive me up to MEPS, and my mom's like, "No, I think we're going to drive you up. It's 2 hour drive." Yep, 2 hour drive up to Troy, Michigan, where I went to MEPS, and they they just sat up there waiting for me to get through all of the things, through the real ASVAB, through all the physical stuff and all that. The entire drive to Michigan, my mom was trying to talk me out of joining.
Damn. How did that make you feel? Like your mom that's always supported you throughout everything is now trying to talk you out of probably, well, the biggest decision of your life at the time.
Uh, I was a young, stubborn 20-year-old kid. I was going to do it whether mom wanted me to do it or not. Um, and I knew she would come around.
Yeah. So 21 years later, how does she feel about that whole situation where she tried to talk you out of it? Do you guys ever talk about it?
I actually had the colonel that did my retirement ceremony write it into his speech.
What'd your mom say about it?
She just laughed and then started crying because she gets all emotional because she's a girl. Uh,
She loves you, man. I
yeah,
love
yeah.
it. I love it. So one thing I want to add, huge shout out to your parents for them to show that level of dedication and love to you to go to MEPS and sit there for 2+ hours. That's some dedication right there, because we all know that process in MEPS takes a long time.
Yep.
So that shows how committed that your parents were to you. All right, so your mom talks you out of it. You get done with MEPS. When did you find out? Like, when did you find out all the details of the things that you wanted?
So it was at MEPS that basically that same day. They were like, "All right, we can ship you out in June. Um, you're going to be a medic. You're going to go to Alaska. We're going to pay off your college debt." And then the only thing I had asked for, but it was kind of one of the late asks, was to go airborne. My recruiter didn't want me to go airborne because he was a leg too. And, but so he didn't ask for it when he went in and talked to the guy that did my contract. And then when the contract came out, I was like, you know what? I don't care. I'm going to sign it anyway. I didn't really push. It wasn't one of those like top priority things for me. It was one of those like, well, if we can get it, who doesn't want to fall out of airplanes? Never went to airborne school though.
So, Troy, I never wanted to fall out of airplanes, man.
I
Never.
did when I was young and dumb.
Yeah.
Now I can only imagine what my knees would be like now if I would have done that.
So I only can imagine as well. So when did you ship off to basic?
June 9th of 03 is when I went to basic. And I might have left on the 8th or whatever, but my basic active service date was the 9th. And so I was 6 weeks from when I went to MEPS-ish, maybe 8 before I went.
Man, you did that fast. That was cool. Only reason I say that, I was on the delayed entry program because I was still in college at the time. I had to finish. So I signed up on the day after my birthday, April 26, 1999. And then in July 20th, I left for the Army. That was my active date, July 21st. So that's pretty good, man. What were you doing 9/11? I like to ask everybody that question.
I had just gotten off working a overnight shift at a tarp making factory. We made tarps for semis, and there was only three of us on the night shift. It was me and two girls that they did all the sewing. I did all the like cutting out, heat sealing of all the tarps, like the basic building of the tarp, and then they would finish it. Um, and so I got off at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I, for some reason, woke up and I went upstairs, turned on the news just in time to watch the second tower get hit. Um, and I was still kind of groggy, and I'm like, what the hell just happened? And um, it was the second one, so I knew at that point it was an attack. And yeah, so I didn't sleep through it, but I woke up just in time to watch that second tower get hit. Kind of a sobering moment.
When you saw that, did you have any urge or feeling to want to join the military then, or were you just like, oh shit, this is a little overwhelming?
It was an oh shit, this is overwhelming. And then I did have kind of a thought about it at the time, but I was in between my freshman and sophomore years, and I was doing okay still in college, so I was trying to write it out. And it wasn't doing great, but I wasn't doing too bad. I was still getting like A's and B's. But I overloaded myself that freshman spring semester. We did quarters at Ohio State back when I went there. So it was like a fall, winter, and spring quarter. I had overloaded myself, and my GPA dipped a little bit, but I was still pretty set on finishing college. That
Did you ever finish?
no.
Okay. Put that on on your bucket list. Knock it out real quick.
Yeah, I started to go back for emergency and disaster management through American Military University.
Nice.
And that's on pause, but I'm good. I think I'm going to try to go back and finish probably at one of the local community college, because it'll probably be easier doing it locally than online.
Yeah. Well, hell, man, if you need any support in that, let me know. I'll definitely help you out, man. I'm happy for you to continue to pursue that degree. So keep it up. So you get shipped off the basic. I see here you went to Fort Sill.
Yeah,
That's where I went to basic, man.
home of the gun bunnies.
That's right. Hey, what battery were you in?
Delta 119.
Nice. I was in Echo Battery. I can't even remember. I got the picture. It's like 24 years ago. That shit was a long time ago.
The only reason I remember is the dude at the range, because he would go, Delta 119, watch your lane, and chill. It was great.
It's crazy the shit we remember in the military, man. The most trivial thing. So, how did you like basic?
I mean, it was basic training. It was everything I kind of expected it to be. My recruiter told me before I left, he goes, man, as soon as you figure out it's a game, it'll be smooth sailing from there. And it took me a couple weeks to like get into that mindset. Probably about whiteface for us is when I was like, okay, this is a game, and just roll with the punches.
Yep, just roll with the thing. I told everybody that just the way I got through a lot of the hard things in the military was, well, I'll just say the schools. You knew it was always a game, roll with the punches, and there was always an end date. So just do your best, keep it pushing. What was the hardest part about basic for you?
It was really the first time being away. My first airplane ride was on my way to basic.
Really?
Yep. On a little prop Delta plane, I think it was. Little puddle jumpers. I think it was 2 flights down. And then just kind of the shock of just getting people in your face constantly at the very beginning. But it was just I was just a little dude. I was like a $135 soaking wet. I put on 30 pounds in basic. So yeah, just the amount of like physical activity. Like I was pretty active. I ran cross country, wrestled, did track. It was just a different physical activity than I was used to.
What was the best part about basic?
Graduation. Finally being done with it. Because I was a holdover for a couple of days after basic, and found out the drill sergeants were people. They immediately treated us differently as soon as we graduated. It was great.
Yeah, it is very. Seeing your drill sergeants be human beings, normal people, is it's intriguing because
Yeah.
you see them as these not idols, but they're like these giants in your life when you're first in the military. Everybody loves their drill sergeant,
Yep.
and then when you start seeing their personality and their humility, it's a very nice gesture at the end. So you go off to Fort Sam Houston for AIT.
Yep.
How long was AIT?
I was there from August to December. So what, 3 months, something like that?
That's it for a medic?
Yeah, 16, 17 weeks, I think was the total.
Damn. I thought it'd be something longer than that.
No.
What was the best part about AIT?
Really just getting the foundation for the craft. You learn everything outside of AIT. But just getting that kind of base foundation, finding out what I'm actually going to be doing in the military. And I enjoyed really all of it, becoming an EMT and then going on to the combat medicine part. The combat medicine part was probably my favorite part, the last half.
Did your parents go to your basic graduation?
Yep. My my grandpa was in the Army back in World War II, and on a whim, my grandparents traveled and would drive everywhere. So on a whim, like 2 nights before I graduated basic training, my grandparents just said, "All right, let's go to Oklahoma," and they got in the car and drove. So I didn't know they were coming. My parents brought my girlfriend at the time, who is now my wife.
Let's go, Troy.
Yeah, I met my wife 6 weeks before I went to basic, is when I started dating. And so my grandparents just showed up out of a whim, and them showing up was really amazing because I wasn't expecting them to be there. They were in their late 70s, I think, at the time.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, man, to have your grandfather there, a World War II veteran.
Yep.
Man, that's a huge deal. Did you guys, they usually, I vaguely remember at basic and AIT during the ceremonies, they would do a shout out to the veterans, especially, World War II veterans. Did you let them know that your grandfather was coming?
I had no idea he was coming until they showed up.
Ah, okay. Did you cry when you saw him?
No, I'm not a very emotional guy, I guess. I don't cry a lot. I was just happy that they were there.
All right, great, man. You got any siblings?
I got 2 older brothers.
2 older brothers. Did they come to your graduation? How was your relationship with them?
No, I mean, typical sibling relationship. I'd say it's pretty good. Just, we always fought as kids because that's what boys do.
Yeah, that's what brothers do. Me and my brother, we beat each other up all the time, man.
Yep. When I graduated basic, it was like August time frame. So my brothers were both in college, getting ready to start school again. If they hadn't already started school, actually, they probably had by that point. So they were busy doing their thing. And
so you leave AIT. Where do you go next?
Fort Wainwright, Alaska.
How was that experience?
Shocking. We got off the plane in jeans and a t-shirt and quickly recognized my error because it was 35 below when I got off the plane. Yeah. Took a little bit to get adjusted because you don't know how cold it is until you experience it. But quickly got all my cold weather gear, and after I got like a good jacket and hats and all that, I was fine.
What made you want to go to Fort Wainwright?
I always wanted to visit Alaska since I was a little kid, and hunting and fishing opportunities up there are pretty amazing. Didn't get to do any hunting, but I did get some fishing in, and it was good times.
How long were you there for?
I was stationed there for a little over 3 years, but I was deployed for 18 months of that.
Okay. Where was your first deployment at?
Iraq.
What year was this?
2005. We went in August, late July, early August of 2005. I started out Key West. Saw my first action down there. And I went home on terminal leave. Went home on R&R and ended up getting engaged on R&R on my mom's 50th birthday. And then came back. When I came back, we had moved to Missoula to do personal security detail for the State Department. So did that for 6 months. And then 3 days before I was supposed to come home, we got extended. We went to Baghdad after that. And then we were in Baghdad for a couple weeks. And then we went to Taji for the remainder of the tour until November when I got home.
Let's talk about that real quick, because there's a lot to unpack, because there's certain things I can remember. Number one, I remember you guys made, correct me if I'm wrong, because it's been some time, but you guys made national news because the way they extended you guys. Is that correct?
Yeah. So they put us in a combo blackout at Q West, because we had all kind of regathered back at Q West, and put us on a combo blackout for 48 hours. So I couldn't call home, nothing. And when they told us, I went straight to the phone center to call home, and my dad just immediately started cussing me out because I didn't tell him we got extended. I'm like, Dad, you found out before I did. I found out 10 minutes ago. You've known for the last 48 hours.
Wasn't it to the point where they sent people home and then they had to go back?
Yep. One of my good friends, Brian Pierce, he went home on our Advon, made it back, got interviewed by the Army Times about having to turn around and come back to Iraq. And he goes,
Damn.
Well, I made it home to my family, but I got to go take care of my second family and go back to Iraq. It is what it is. And then October 21st, he got critically wounded.
Damn.
Caught an IED, hit him in the back of the head, damn near died. Still alive to this day, doing well. But that extension was rough on all of us.
Oh, I only can imagine, man. Just think about, and I want everybody, the audience, to understand, when we know we're going home, the morale would just shoot up. And for you to get home, that's one thing I was always nervous about, because what happened to you guys in Alaska. So it was always in the back of my head. And I was always thinking, when are they going to tell us that we're going back, or they're going to extend us? But when that happened to you guys, I mean, everybody in the Army knew about it, and it was like national news. It was a huge deal, because they sent a lot of people home. Then they went back. They kept you guys there in 18 months. That's a long ass deployment, man. So when you're at Fort Wainwright, who are you attached to?
I was in 411 Field Artillery with the 172nd Stryker Brigade.
Stryker Brigade. I was with Stryker Brigade too. The first one in the Army down in Fort Lewis.
Okay. Yep. I think we were third. Yep.
You were a ground medic at the time, right?
Yep.
So when did the whole notion of becoming a flight medic become a thing?
When we were in Kuwait getting ready to go to Iraq, I re-enlisted for another 2 years. And when we got extended, I had already was on assignment to come to Fort Riley, and HRC sent over a team and basically offered us any assignment we wanted in the Army. And I was like, keep me at Fort Riley. I just want to go to the hospital. So they put me on assignment to come to the hospital here. And I was about to get out of the Army. I was within probably 60 days of ETS. I was going to go work for the Ohio Highway Patrol. And the economy went to shit. And so I called the Highway Patrol because they hadn't called me. And I was like, hey guys, what's going on? Why haven't I gotten a phone call yet for, the follow-on testing? And they were like, well, if you haven't heard from us, we're not going to look at your application for another 2 years. So I walked my happy ass downstairs to the retention NCO, re-enlisted. But I told him, I was like, I want to do something outside of being a straight 68 whiskey. And I was like, I'm down between cardiac cath lab tech and flight medic. And so we started going through those ASIs, and I didn't have the prerequisites to be a cardiac cath lab tech. So I was like, well, I guess I'm going flight medic. So we did my packet, and that's when I became a flight medic.
That's interesting, man. So you never had a desire to be a flight medic. It was just something A random choice.
Kind of, sort of. It's the seed got planted when I was in Iraq and when Brian got hit, and that aircraft coming in and just kind of swooping in and taking him off. Was like, man, that's cool.
Yeah.
And I knew that if I stayed in, I didn't want to work on my friends anymore. I wanted to work on people I didn't know so I could have that separation. And because Brian getting hit really affected me really bad. And I knew I didn't want to be close to my patients.
You're the medic who worked on him then?
Yep. I was the second one there. The first guy there said he was dead. I pulled him out of the turret, laid him flat, and he was breathing and had a pulse. Well, he's not dead yet, so worked him as much as we could. It was about 45 minutes from the explosion till he was on the table with a neurosurgeon at Balad.
Damn, man.
Yeah.
And that's just a testament to the medevac and what we do. And man, I never told you this, but I probably have, but you one of my heroes, man. The things I've seen you do and just hearing that story right there. If you don't mind, could you just tell us the story of how everything happened?
Yeah. So, my platoon was out on roving patrol that day. We had set up before they called them cops, we had set up an outpost at an Iraqi police station, and we would flip back and forth. So it was 72 hours out, 72 hours in. So the 72 hours in, though, that just meant that we were the roving patrol for 72 hours, and we would sleep back at the fob. So we were on roving patrol, and we were...
Where were you guys located?
Maymana, Iraq.
Okay.
About 20 miles north of Taji.
Okay.
And it was kind of a hotbed. Every time like a logistics patrol would roll through there, they'd get shot up. So we were like, let's put some presence here to like keep the clips from getting attacked every time they came through. And it was kind of a hotbed for insurgent activities. A small little town, but they always had people taking pot shots at everybody. So a week or so before, they had put an IED in a culvert on Route Tampa, blew it up underneath the tank, and nobody was hurt. They just kind of backed the tank up and drove around the hole. So when the engineers came out and fixed it, they had concreted over it, put rebar in the culvert so water could still flow, but you couldn't get in there to plant IEDs. My platoon sergeant at the time was really afraid of driving over that patch. So we would always go in the northbound lane to go south when we're on our patrols. So we were doing that one day. We'd crossed the median. We were heading south in the northbound lane. Sergeant Major's convoy was coming north, told us, hey, can you guys turn around and go help us pull security at this spot? We're dropping a piece of equipment off. Sure, no problem. So as we start to turn around, hear a massive explosion. And I can kind of look back through the truck and see that one of the trucks had been hit and was disabled. And I could see that somebody was hurt. So I'm telling my TC, the truck commander, I'm like, hey, get me up there. Somebody's hurt. I need to go. And there was some back and forth between us and the platoon sergeant. And eventually I was like, either you drive my ass up there, or I'm going to fucking run up there. And we ended up driving up there. So we get up there, and Gunner slouched over in the turret, kind of on to his left side. And they didn't pull him out of the turret. So I get up there, and the way I remember, whether it's true or not, is I one-armed this dude out of the turret and got him laid on the hood of the Humvee. He's got a pulse. He's breathing. And I looked at the medic that said he was dead, and I was like, well, he's not fucking dead until I say he's dead. And
did you know immediately that was your friend at the time?
No, not right away. didn't recognize him at all.
Damn.
So immediately call for a bird because I knew he had to get evac somewhere. I just didn't know what the extent of his injuries were. So my thought was get the aircraft in the air. We'll figure it out when they get here. When they called up the 911, they said it was all left chest and leg wounds because that's where all the blood was. And get him on the litter, start working. There's live wires blown like all over the place because it was the IED was suspended on a electrical pole.
Damn.
And so, and there's diesel everywhere because they hit the fuel tank. So I'm in the middle of a pool of diesel with live wires floating around. Luckily, diesel doesn't just ignite like that.
Correct.
And if it would have been gas, I probably would have been in trouble. But, and I didn't know anything about helicopters at the time, but there was 2 assault birds that came through and shot flares into the market. I thought we were getting shot at, so I cover up Brian real quick. And it was just the assault birds shooting flares to clear out the marketplace so the medbird can come in and land. So I'm going through and doing my assessment, and because my training kicked in, I was like, I can't find where he's hurt. And I was like, training headed to assessment. Let's figure out where all this is coming from. So I took off his Kevlar, put it between his legs, wrapped my hands around, and like found the hole in the back of his head. I was like, oh shit, that's not good. So I start to wrap his head, and probably 30 seconds after I start wrapping his head, this dude just comes awake, sits up, and just starts cussing me out. And I was like, what the fuck's going on? Starts yelling at me, telling me to take his Kevlar off. And I was like, dude, it's in between your legs. And that's when I realized who it was. And I knew his wife, his kids. I knew his family really well. And he yelled at me for maybe 10, 15 seconds. I to this day, I say that's the best ass chewing I've ever gotten. So I let him, he goes back unconscious. He lays back down. The bird comes in and load him up on the aircraft, tell the flight medic, hey, he's got a head injury. He needs to go to Balad. And they're like, all right, cool. So they pick up and they take him to Balad. Got really lucky because the first up aircraft was out, and first up had just gone to Balad. They got fuel and they're on their way back. They heard the call, and they said, hey, we'll be there in 5 minutes instead of the 15 it was going to take for second up to get there. And so they circled back around, came in, picked him up, and went back to Balad and got him on the table with the neurosurgeon. We got him out of there pretty quick, which was pretty beneficial, obviously.
So you would say about 5 minutes from the time you made the call, the medevac was on ground getting him?
Yep, probably.
How did that 5 minutes feel? Did it feel like an eternity, or was it fast?
Eternity. It was crazy how long it felt. It was long enough for me to yell and cuss out the Battalion S3 because he didn't have my aircraft there yet. That went over like a lead balloon, if you can imagine. But it was one of those, like, I've always been told, you're the medic on ground, you got a patient, you're in charge. I don't give a shit who's there.
Yep.
And that's how I treated it. And I'm sure that Battalion S3 probably still hates me. I don't care though.
They'll get over it.
Yep.
When it's situations like that, the time goes by so slow. You look at the time, man, only 2 minutes went by. What the fuck? But that's why I asked you, how long did it feel? Because I know it probably felt like an eternity. Just imagine if you had to wait those 15 minutes.
Yep.
What was your biggest takeaway from that deployment?
That was, I mean, for me, that was when I decided I did not want to work on my friends anymore. Just knowing the guys that I worked on was very emotional and very draining on me.
Yeah.
There's no way I could have made it 21 years working on the people I worked with every day.
When you came back from that deployment, did you notice anything different about yourself?
Not right away. When I got back almost immediately, so in like around Christmas time, they let us go on whatever leave we had. So if they were like, if you've got 90 days of leave, brigade commander said, I don't care, you can take it all. I'll approve anything. So I took 47 days of leave, went home, got married, went back to Alaska. My wife stayed in Ohio to finish up college. Went back to Alaska, and then I moved to Fort Riley, and I was what I would say is relatively okay. Like, I was jumpy, but I wasn't like, I didn't notice a lot of my PTSD type symptoms until later on.
Yeah.
Like, I remember two very specific incident. Well, three really. So I got off the plane, and they made us fill out a questionnaire. And me being a medic, I hit like all the boxes. They're like, did you see dead people? Did you work on Americans? Did you do XYZ? And I was like, yep. They're like, you need to go see the shrink right now. So they literally, in the hangar where they dropped us off at, they had a psychologist, and they made me go see him. And when I went in and sit with him, one of the doors in the hangar slammed, because it was just one of those like automatic doors that just, you open it and it would shut, and it shut loud. And I hit the floor because it sounded like a mortar. And he's like, okay, so you're a little jumpy. You just got back from deployment. That makes sense. And then I was driving to work one morning, and I was driving by Manhattan's airport, and one of their strobes went off, and I thought it was a flash from an IED, and I kind of swerved. But that one kind of caught me by surprise. And then it was 4th of July. One of my neighbors had M80 firecrackers. He lit up some and threw them up by my balcony where I was grilling. And I dove back through the door so fast. My wife's like, what the fuck just happened? I'm like, oh, I'm just a little jumpy. But like 18 months post deployment, moving to Fort Campbell is when some of the stuff really started to hit me, like the survivor's guilt and stuff like that. But that's when I really started to notice I started drinking a lot more, started just having a lot more depression and stuff like that.
Yeah. Your relationship with Brian is still strong today?
Yeah. We talk every couple of months usually.
Okay, perfect. So you leave Fort Riley. How did you get to Fort Campbell?
Yep. So because when I re-enlisted to go be a flight medic, I went to flight medic school, and then is a TDY en route, and then went to Fort Campbell. Showed up there. They put me in paramedic school right away, which was amazing, just to be able to get that opportunity basically by chance.
Did you where'd you do flight medic school at?
Fort Rucker.
Fort Rucker? Perfect. What year did you get to Fort Campbell?
2009.
2009. That paramedic school, who was in a paramedic school with you?
So that was a locally funded through the division, only for the flight medics in the division paramedic school. So it was all of the flight medics from Charlie 6101, and then there was, I think, 4 from 7101.
Nice. Was Sergeant Francis with you in that school?
Yep.
Yeah, he's on, he'll be episode 3. Him and I, we chopped it up. It was a pretty good experience. But he talked about, one thing he talked about, I don't know if you could attest to it. He said when he was going through paramedic school, one thing he realized how much stuff he did not know.
Oh, yeah.
And the sense of urgency he had to try to learn as much as he could before his first deployment. Did you feel the same way? Yeah,
because becoming a paramedic, you don't realize what you don't know. And it's a different ballgame. There's a lot more going on that you're thinking about. EMT or O2 oxygen transport. Paramedic, you're looking at like, what more can I do to give this guy a better outcome? And you should have the skills and knowledge to be able to help a little bit more before you get in the truck and just get to the nearest facility because you have those skills and knowledge.
How long were you at Fort Campbell for?
4.5 years.
4.5 years. So you get there 2009. What month did you get there?
April, May, I think.
Yeah, I just missed you then. I left in April, so I just missed you. We got back from our 2008 deployment. I went down to be a SEER instructor. You came in. So you go to paramedic school, your first deployment. First off, what was your reaction of the 101st when you first got there?
It was different. Showed up to reception and they tried to send me to 2nd Brigade. Luckily, I'd already gone and talked to the company and they were like, no, you're a flight medic. You're coming here. Had to get some sergeants major involved. But yeah, it was definitely, I kind of always wanted to go to the 101st because of the history and all that. And it was pretty much what I expected it to be getting there. It was just more regular Army. I came from a brigade size element to a hospital, which is another brigade size element, to like an actual division. And that was a wake up call.
Charlie Company 6101, correct?
Yep.
And when did you realize you're going to get deployed again? And how did you feel?
It was pretty quick, and it was something I expected. I knew that if I reenlisted and went to another unit, I was most likely going to deploy again. I didn't realize the frequency medevacs went, but it was something that I was ready for and prepared for.
So you becoming a flight medic, how did you, the few things you're experiencing before combat, how did you feel being a flight medic compared to a ground medic?
It was different. It was a tough transition for me to go from the ground to aviation because it's a completely different world. When I first showed up, the first person I met was one of our captains, and he's got his hat like tipped back on in the back of his head. He's got sunglasses on, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? What did I get myself into?
Yeah.
Hands in pockets, whatever, you know. It was different.
It's funny because I talked about this on the episode with Dwayne Taylor, and with Sergeant Major, how you leave like the infantry world where it's it's just different, by the book, the little details, make sure you're looking squared away. Then you get to the Army aviation and we're just like, we're here.
Yep.
We're going to fly helicopters, be fat, dumb, and happy, and just do the mission. And I know a lot of sergeant majors got on us, especially the warrants and just aviation in general, about our parents, was it 670-1 things, and we're just always we're very flippant about it, like who cares, we're here to fly helicopters. When was your first deployment with 101st?
It was 2010-11. It was in Tarancou. Pretty good experience. Got to work a lot with the Australians and the Dutch, and first time really being around a bunch of SF guys all the time because we lived on an SF compound. Learned a lot. Just seeing how different countries and even the SF guys did things.
Yeah.
It was weird being like the only paramedic there, so they relied on me for a lot more of the like narcotics and drug things than like, taking care of them instead of like we all were trained in them and used them, but like just getting the systems in place to make sure that we were doing things appropriately in that realm.
So you've been in Iraq 2005 as a ground guy. Now you're in Afghanistan. And to my knowledge, one of the peak points in Afghanistan, how was that deployment compared to your 2005 deployment?
Patient wise, it was a lot busier because, we picked up from everybody instead of just whatever I had in my platoon. It was good. We had some mass call situations. We had, I remember there was an Afghan police station that got overran that we had 30 patients from. So we put 15 in each helicopter. Just trying to manage mass amounts of patients was a good learning experience. Never had to deal with that on the ground. Probably would have never been really in a situation where that was the case. Just a different aspect of Army medicine.
Yeah. With you being on the ground and working on your buddy in 2005 and now being a medevac flight medic, did you understand and appreciate the sense of urgency every time you got a Cat Alpha call? Like, hey, the importance of it.
Yeah. It was one thing that I tried to impress on people when I first got there. A lot of the flight medics were brought up in the flight medic community. They started out in aviation and then became a flight medic.
Okay.
So they didn't understand that the ground medics are dealing with different situations than they are. They would talk bad about ground medics and be like, oh, these guys are dumb. No, they're not dumb. You have to realize that these guys are under fire, working on their best friends, trying to do their best job. If they miss a bullet hole in a knee or a leg or something, like, it's not the end of the world. Even if they miss a chest wound, it's not the end of the world. You just need to find it and fix it for them. A couple of guys got humbled when they got chewed out by a doctor because they missed something on a flight. And you got, like, nobody's perfect.
Correct.
And somebody is always going to try to Monday morning quarterback you. So if the ground medic does their best job, you do your best job, and you still miss something, as long as it's not a detriment to the patient, then, you did the best you could. Some of those flights we had were only 5-10 minutes long. You're not finding everything in 5-10 minutes. And some people really needed to be humbled.
Yeah. I think you make a very good point. Those ground medics, some guys they're like in the shit, man.
Yeah.
Like, medevac, we're going to be there for a few minutes, grab the patient, we're out. These ground medics, like you said, number one, they got to work on their friends. They're living with these dudes, eating with them, spending all this time. So you're building that relationship with them. Then when the shit hits the fan, these guys still have to perform medicine. They have to stay alive. Shit, that's the biggest thing, because they're in the thick of things, right? It ain't like we're in a helicopter, our asses are leaving. These guys on the ground, they gotta fight, keep their friends alive. And then the biggest thing, which I think a lot of people don't understand, keeping that professional separation.
Yep.
Like, I can't let my emotions get involved right now because it is my friend in front of me, and I got to continue to perform to save his life, because I actually know his family. I know his wife and his children. So the sense of urgency. But I think that's one of the biggest things I want to convey on this show is we need to have a fond appreciation, understanding of everybody's role in the military, no matter, like I said it before, the cooks, supply, ground guys, all of us, we're all one team to make something, complete the mission, essentially. What was your rank at this time?
I was a sergeant. I was an E5 on
E5?
that. Yep.
What was your most memorable event in 2010, or your most significant act of heroism during 2010?
Probably the most memorable mission we got. Unfortunately, it didn't end well for the patient, but we got called for a Cat Alpha patient. An Australian conventional force had been hit and they were pinned down. Weather was shit. It couldn't have been more than 400 meters visibility. I don't even think it was that long or that far. And we took off. Well, sorry. The mist came in, and my pilots were just kind of doing the normal, like, run up. I mean, it was a Cat Alpha, so it was a little bit faster, obviously, but like, still kind of taking their time, especially when they heard the mechanism was gunshot wound left bicep. So they're like, oh, it's just an extremity wound or whatever. And then, it was, the next was interventions, and they're like CPR. It was CPR in progress. And I was like, oh shit, we got to go. I'm like, did you guys hear that? And they're like, no, what? It's like, it was CPR in progress. We got to fucking go. So, slam the PCLs forward. take off, and we're heading out. And I want to say my PC was Mr. Shepard, PI I know is Tyson. Can't remember his last name for the life of me right now. And then Corey McElhatton was my crew chief. And we're taking off. We lost our chase bird because of the visibility. We crossed into the bowl, and we're putzing along because visibility is shit. So we're just trying not to like run into anything or whatever. And there's a lot going on. We know there's fast movers in the area. We know there's a decent enemy force. And we're maybe...
Was this daytime or nighttime?
Daytime.
Okay.
So we're like 200 feet, maybe 80 knots, just kind of like trying to get a hold of the ground force. And I remember Corey looking out the window and going, oh shit, we're going to get shot at. And there was 8 dudes right below us next to a building, and they all just kind of sprayed up at us. I don't know how they missed us, but every bullet missed us. And then a Mirage comes over the radio and was like, hey, dust off. I need you to move. I'm trying to bomb those dudes. So we're like, oh shit. So we, speed up, get out of his way so he can bomb them. And then the PI is like, oh, I've been shot. And so I kind of look forward at him and I'm like, where'd you get shot at? And he goes, in my left arm. And I look and I'm like, bro, it would have had to come through the center console to get your ass. And there's no hole. You're not bleeding. And so we continue on, and we asked the ground force to pop smoke. So they tell us they're like popping green smoke. And I kid you not, at least 4 different poofs of green smoke pop up. And I was
in different locations?
In different locations. We're like, what the hell just happened?
Holy shit.
So I don't know if the bad dudes heard us say green smoke, or if they saw the green smoke go and they started throwing their own green smoke. I don't know. We're coming in, having a hard time identifying good guys from bad guys. We ended up having to like fly up along a ridge and come back over them just to verify that's who they were, where they were. Circled back around, landed in the back of this courtyard of this house, ended up blowing over the walls with the rotor blades.
Damn.
And I go to jump out of the aircraft, and all I see is bullets impacting right in front of me outside of the door. And I'm like, whoop, I'm not getting out here. And here comes the Australian guys. They bring him in, and this dude is obviously gone. Nothing we could really do for him. We beat feet back to the hospital, and they pronounced him there. But that was one of like the oh shit moments in that department. Yeah. Had another one. I thought about this one as I was telling you that story. We get called up for 2 Cat Alpha SF guys. In this one, they had aircraft stacked every 1,000 feet, just raining down hell. It was when we got on scene as well, I'll call it. When we got into the area, it looked like we were flying into a fucking movie. It was ridiculous how many explosions and all the gunfire. We contacted the ground force, and we're like, hey, this is us. We're 5 minutes out, and they're like, dust off, don't land at the original LZ, just all this constant gunfire. We're like, all right, well, tell us where to go. So they gave us a new grid. We ended up landing. It was alongside, it was like on a creek bed. We're on like a gravel creek bed, and the SF guys come flying over to us with their 2 patients. And these 2 guys I'll probably never forget. So they come out of the truck. One got shot in the heel. It came in the inside of his foot and out the backside of his foot. And the other was their 18 Delta, got shot in the chest. He had given himself a chest seal. I don't think he darted himself, but I remember he gave himself a chest seal, gave himself morphine. They both walked to the aircraft.
Hold on real quick. Just hold on. I got to wrap my mind around this.
Yep.
18 Delta, that's the Special Forces medics, correct?
Yep.
This dude got shot in the chest, and he performed his own medical care.
Yep.
That right there is a testament to how badass these dudes truly are. I
Yeah.
mean, holy shit, man. So did he like when they walked to the aircraft, was this 18 Delta giving you the brief on,
Yeah.
the medical
Yeah. I didn't know
exchange?
he was a patient.
Holy shit.
So he tells me what's going on. And like the dude that got shot in the foot is also walking to the helicopter. I'm like, what the hell is wrong with you? So we get on the aircraft. He tells the dude that got shot in the foot hadn't had any pain meds yet. So start an IV on him, give him, or no, I gave him a fentanyl lollipop first. So it was an 800 microgram fentanyl lollipop. And we start flying back. We had a little bit of turbulence. I ended up landing on this dude's foot that was shot. And then he screams in pain, obviously. So I give him 10 milligrams of morphine. And then the 18 Delta was like, hey, man, you got another one of the fentanyl lollipops? So I gave him one too. We get back to the FST on the SF compound. And when SF dudes hear that one of their own is hurt, you get every swinging dick.
It's some serious shit. I've seen it with my own eyes. It's some serious shit. These dudes are, their level of dedication to each other is unparalleled, bro. These dudes, they're coming.
So there's like 30 dudes standing on the LZ when we land, kind of surrounding the FLA. And me and my crew chief are trying to get off the aircraft in front of these two dudes to stop the SF dudes from getting into the aircraft. Because they're like, we got 2 Cat Alphas, they're litter patients, we got to get these guys off, we're going to carry them. And so me and my crew chief are out there trying to stop all these 18 series guys from getting on the helicopter. And we're like, stop, they want to walk. So no shit, these 2 guys walk off the aircraft. I thought the dude that got shot in the foot was going to fight me when I pulled out a litter. And I was like, all right, sorry, buddy, didn't mean to offend you.
Damn, bro.
So they walk off the aircraft, they get in the FLA, they go in, and when they get into the ER, the dude that got shot in the foot was looking for more pain meds because he was still in a lot of pain. So they give him some more IV fentanyl and a little bit of Versed. The Versed will help you like not remember shit. So it comes time to transfer them down to Kandahar because the FST can only do so much.
Yeah.
And we had an Australian SF medic flying with us on the transfer that night. We'd done shift change, and he walks into the FST, and the SF guy looks at him. He goes, "You got a funny accent." And Mick just looks at him deadpan right in his face. He's like, "Nah, mate, you got the funny accent," and completely blows this dude's mind. The drugs, everything. He's like, "Holy shit, what just happened?" So they ended up flying him down to Kandahar with the Australian SF guy in the back, and this dude was completely stoned out of his mind and had no idea what was going on. He thought there was aliens or something. Great times.
I want to go back to the Australian patient you picked up.
Yep.
When you first saw him, you knew he was KIA?
Yep.
Can you explain your responsibility in a situation like that? Do you still have to continue CPR until you get him there? Can you pronounce him dead?
So in that situation, the guy was, I guess, obviously dead. So what happened was he was running, bullet hit him in the arm, traveled up his humerus, across his chest, dissected his aorta. So he was dead before he hit the ground.
Yeah.
He was purple from the nipple line up, which is very indicative of a major vessel injury in the chest. You'll see it a lot in like pulmonary embolus patients. If they throw a clot, they'll go purple from the nipple line up. And rigor hadn't started to set in yet, but this dude was obvious, like no pulse, no breathing, no signs of life. We didn't end up doing anything for him. My crew chief was very upset with me that we didn't do CPR or anything on him. And I'm like, dude, there's no level of care that I can do for this guy. So when that unit ended up coming out of the field, they came over to us to thank us for coming in and getting him. And their medic pulled me aside and he was like, "Hey, the FST told us that you got him back in flight. Is that true?" And I said, "No, man, going to be blatantly honest with you. I didn't even try. And he was like, yeah, so I knew he was gone when I called you. And there was nothing that we were going to do. He's like, he's like, they didn't do CPR. It just got called over as CPR in progress. So they ended up giving me the Australian flag off of that guy's truck. And I carried that with me in my body armor for the rest of that deployment. It's kind of a nice gesture that they did that.
What was your biggest takeaway from that 2010 deployment?
I still had a lot to learn, and I could be better.
Yeah. Dan, that says a lot about the human being you are, Troy. I mean, you just go through all these things in 2010 deployment, and the only thing you can think about is being a better medic. And that just says volumes about the type of person you are. So, man, huge shout out to you, bro. After that deployment, and now you could sit back and recollect, what was the biggest differences from 2005, 2010, meaning ground medic, flight medic?
So for me, it was being able to, I don't want to say like dehumanize, but like separate myself from the patients I was working on. Like to this day, there's maybe 5 people out of all of the probably hundreds that I've treated that I know their outcome. And I think that was the biggest difference for me, is being able to not know them. I feel like I was able to provide better care and not be as distracted.
And something I can add on, and it's something that I can relate to, and I know several other people mentioned it on the show. Disconnecting is not necessarily a bad thing. That's the way we had to preserve our minds, right? We couldn't know. There's only a handful. There's probably maybe 5 people like you that I could remember by name that I've helped. And the reason being is that shit will destroy your mind. It'll just crush you. And you know how it is, just dealing with that trauma over and over and over again. And if you get a personal connection to things, it's not going to turn out well for the medic, the pilots, the crew chiefs. So when we talk about we disconnect, it's not from an inhumane standpoint. It's the way we preserved our minds so we could continue to do the mission. That's the biggest thing. So when you get back in 2010, how are you feeling? How was your mental then?
I had a couple rough calls on that deployment that affected me. I was still, I think, dealing more with the stuff from my 05-06 deployment than I was anything from the 10-11 deployment. Felt good enough to go, keep doing the things I was doing.
At this time, you're still E5?
Yeah, I promoted to staff sergeant right before the 12-13 deployment.
You get back, get some downtime, chill with the family, and I show up. We start getting ready for the 12-13 deployment. What was your state of mind, and how are you feeling about the 12-13 deployment?
Pretty good. On the 10-11, I just signed another contract for another 5 years. So again, it was one of those, like, it's my job. This is what I'm doing, and go be the best that I can be for all these people. I knew going in that I was going to be running a site, because my platoon was going to be, we knew we were going to be running 2 sites. We didn't know what that was going to necessarily look like. We ended up running 3, with a super platoon.
What sites did you run?
We had Shank, Ghazni, and Warrior.
Okay.
Well, I was in charge of Ghazni. That was my site.
Mm-hmm. So we show up there 2012-13. You were in JBAD for a little while, correct?
Yep, I went up to JBAD for until the end of October, from August to the end of October, to become an FI.
I thought you were there. You weren't there in July?
Oh, I guess it would have been July. Yeah, July.
I think the end of July to the October.
Yeah.
When So you get there. How were you feeling when you got there? You had this experience as a flight medic, ground medic. You show up in 12. How are you feeling,
Uh,
confidence wise?
Confidence wise, I was pretty confident. Knew it was going to be at the beginning was going to suck because me and Audrey were the only two flight medics that were RL1. So we knew that we were going to get we were going to be the busy ones. We were the ones that were going to be flying every mission, and then because she was the platoon sergeant, I knew I was going to get an even bigger load of that, and I did.
What's one of your most memorable moments in the 2000? First off, how did you feel now that you had to become an FI? You're going to be a high time medic, and you're in a different part of Afghanistan. At any point, did you feel overwhelmed?
So right off the bat, I don't know if you remember, you probably do, but when we were at JBAD and we were in the RIP process, and Shank took very accurate IDF, and one
I
of
do
the
remember.
outgoing crew chiefs was killed.
Yep.
I had a very hard time with that. I was like, I need to get back with my platoon. I need to be down there with them. I was going to quit being an FI just so I could get back with my platoon, because it was, to me, that's where I needed to be. And I'm glad that they kind of talked me down. It took a couple of days. They're like, no, we really need you as an FI. They're okay down there. We're going to send some other people to kind of backfill. But we need you to do this. And I kind of accepted it and went on with it. Probably kind of glad I did. Stuck it out because of that big mission that we had. So the mission that sticks out, at least from the beginning part of me getting the mission that sticks out for me at JBAD was when we went and picked up Colonel Walrath out of ABAD. So we were the second part of his mission. So he had gotten blown up by a suicide bomber in Asadabad, and he was at the FST. He was post-op. We got called out. I want to say it was 2 Cat Alpha and a Cat Bravo
Correct.
transfer. And we showed up. I had Julie Duffy with me as the nurse, and then Audrey Ramos was on the chase bird. And because I was lead that day, I took charge. That's how we had it kind of worked out.
And let me add real quick 2 things. 1, this is the picture of that day. Okay. And 2, like Troy just said, first up, we're in charge of the overall mission. We're in charge of the airspace from a medical standpoint too, flying in as the AMC and just a lead chalk. So we had a lot going on that day, and we knew something was going to happen because we did get the initial Cat Alpha for the POI on site, but Air Force guys were in that area that day, so that was a whole nother argument that we were not happy about. But go ahead, Troy.
Yep. So we show up, and the first thing I see when I walk in the door is a crowd of guys, or crowd of medical providers standing around a bed over a very gray ashen patient. So my assumption is that patient passed, and so I asked where our patients for the transfer were, and they directed me to another part of the hospital. So we went down and started getting a report and figuring out what's going on, and then to start divvying up the patients between the 2 aircraft. It was decided that I was going to take 2 because I had 2 providers, and then Audrey would take 1 because she had 1 provider, and it just kind of made sense that we would take the worst and the least worst, and then she would take the middle guy. So we're getting a report and everything, and then one of the nurses or docs comes up to me and is like, hey, we got this other Cat Alpha over here. Do you guys mind taking him? And I was like, wait, who, where? And they point back to the guy that I thought was gone. So
was that Colonel Walrath at the time?
That was Colonel Walrath. Yep.
Man.
So
you showed up and you thought he was already dead.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
I never knew that, man.
Yeah. So
holy shit. I'm outside in the aircraft sitting there fat, dumb, and happy, just waiting for your ass to show up.
Yeah. So, and I think I remember you guys telling me to hurry the fuck up because they were getting some radio chatter about some IDF about to come in, if I remember
Correct.
right.
Yeah, they started it's crazy. I tell everybody when the helicopters show up, that's when the fun starts, right?
Yep.
So we were getting chatter because we were sitting there I remember vaguely that we were sitting there for a minute.
Yeah.
You were in there working. And I'm like, Troy, hey, we need to hurry up, bro. We're getting some because that area, especially on the other side of that valley, was a corn gall.
Yep.
Okay. Just anytime aircraft are sitting on the ground that long, that's when shit starts to happen. And I knew this from 2008 because every time we went everywhere in that area in 2008, that's when the fun started, for lack of better terms. So yeah, I started calling you. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I remember them handing me the labs for this other patient, and I was like, this dude's not stable. Like, it didn't matter. Like, we were gonna take him anyway, but I'm like, his labs are telling me one thing, but his vital signs are telling me something else. So I knew something was up. I just didn't know what. And so I go over and I start doing an assessment on him. Julie's looking at all of their records and everything, and something's just not right. But his entire left leg is in an external fixator. So he's got basically rods from his hip all the way down to his ankle, completely wrapped up in Kerlix. He's a post-op patient. They're all post-op. They had an orthopedic surgeon that had just got done working on him. And so I was like, all right, we got to hurry up. We got to go. So I ended up taking him and like, I think the middle guy, and I gave Audrey the like number 2 and number 4. The number 4 guy was barely wounded. So we get in the aircraft and we start beating feet back to JBAD because we're going to do a tail to tail with Bagram. And about halfway back, Colonel Walred just starts to kind of circle on us. He starts going unconscious. We ran out of blood already. I was like, shit, because we're halfway back. We can't just turn around and go back to the FST we left because it's going to be the same distance either way. So I let you guys know, I'm like, hey, we need to probably have an ambulance on standby because this dude may have to get off at JBAD. You guys radio it ahead. I'm pretty sure at that point got us kind of started getting stuff coordinated. And so as we're getting back, I had started Hextend on him, which is not a preferred method of getting blood pressures back or anything like that. It does more harm to the body than good. But at the time, he's tanking. I need to do something. So we get some Hextend in him. And as we're getting ready to land, he regains consciousness. And I'm like, fuck yeah, this is a win. And I remember Frank coming over and getting a report. And I was like, hey, you're going to take this dude, but I'm going to take this dude this way, and we're going to go into the hospital. He's like, all right, cool, no problem. So we throw him in the back of the FLA. We go over to the FST, and the major that was in charge of the FST opens the door, and he's like, what do you got? What's going on? Why did you guys stop? And I'm like, this dude needs blood right now. And he was like, how the fuck do you know that he needs blood? And I was like, I don't know, because I just spent the last 20 minutes with him, and he keeps trying to die on me, and that's he probably needs blood. So they take him in the FST, and I am walking back, so it couldn't have been more than 5 minutes, and I hear them do the walking blood bank call over the PA system for the fob. And I was like, told you, motherfucker. And so what I didn't know, if we'll fast forward now to 2014, I'm in SLC, and we're just sitting in our small group bullshitting on a break.
What's SLC?
The senior leader course.
Okay.
So I'm sitting in that class, bullshitting about deployments and stuff, and I start talking about this mission, and the dude kind of across from me is like, wait a minute, when were you at JBAD? And I gave him the time frame, and he's like, when was this mission? And I told him, he was like, holy shit, I was there. And he was the OR tech when Colonel Walrath went into the OR, and they found his popliteal bleed that they missed on in Asadabad. And he ended up talking that major, who is their orthopedic surgeon, out of cutting off his leg. He's like,
Damn.
hey, if this was me, I would want the decision to have my leg amputated. So he ended up keeping his leg because this Sergeant First Class, now Sergeant First Class, was telling, Major that let's try to keep his leg and see if he can actually keep it. And to my knowledge, he still has it. So
Yeah, he still has it. I have a picture of him from, I would say about 2-3 years ago. He was with Brian Nielsen. They ran across each other.
yeah,
I think in Ruck or somewhere. I can't remember where, but he sent me a picture. He still has his leg. And but I want to give you a huge shout out that day. But for being the pilot in command that day, I will never forget the sense of, because you and I already flew together a few times. We had another mission, our first mission, picking up that A&A dude. His brains was hanging out.
yeah, oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
I remember the sense of urgency in your voice that day. I've never heard it, but when I heard it, I was like, shit. And I always joke about how fast I flew the hell out of that helicopter that day. I flew that shit. I thought I was going to fall apart in the sky. And that day we were just testing a mic model, see what it had on it. But you did a good job that day. I always want to tell you, I've told you several times that I was proud of you for the decisions you made and standing by him, because did you ever meet, he's a 2-star general, by the way. Did you ever meet him?
So he came to our company change of command after that deployment, and they were like, hey, Halfhill, you're going to go be a door greeter. And I was like, okay, I guess I won't stand in formation, darn. And he came to, I did not know he was coming. So he came and presented me that picture that you have behind you. Well, maybe not that one. It was the one when I asked him what his pain level was, and he threw up a 5.2, and the aide that was with him caught the picture of him throwing up the 2, because his pain was at a 7. He caught the 2, so it looks like he's giving me the peace sign right before I give him a little bit of fentanyl to take the pain away. And so he had that picture framed. He signed it and presented it to me that day at that change of command. But that was the last time I saw him. But we've sporadically kept in touch. He like, when he retired, he emailed me and Brad Nielsen and was like, hey, if you boys need anything, I'm getting out of the Army, I'm retiring, but you can always reach out and ask for favors or whatever. It was always nice having that kind of in my back pocket if I ever needed it.
Yeah. And I tell everybody, when you meet somebody that you saved his life, especially anybody, when you meet somebody and you save their life, it's just a very humbling experience. And he was just so thankful, man. I understand why he was thankful. I mean, hell, we saved his life, but that's one of my most memorable moments, coming home from Afghanistan at March 2013. And he was there waiting on me. I think it was just me, Penny. I'm not sure if you weren't with us.
No.
I'm not sure if Brian Nielsen, I think Brian Nielsen was with us too that day, but just the level of treatment we got from him, and it was very good. So you leave J-Bad, then where'd you go? You went to Ghazni from there? How did things turn out in Ghazni?
So right after I got down to Ghazni, we were doing a crew swap one day, and we'd flown up to Shank to swap out crews, and we had just gotten back. We were in the FARP. We got called for another Cat Alpha patient. The crew coming from Shank was supposed to be lead, but because they had all their bags in their helicopter still, we took lead. And it was right at ENT. So it was sunset, and we knew that there was a Cat Alpha patient we needed to go get. And so we took off at 6 miles south of the FOB. So we fly down there. We didn't know it at the time, but we ended up flying directly over the enemy. The Polish force that was out in the vehicle, they got blown up through purple smoke out there. And all I remember from that part of it was the Alabama National Guard dudes jumping on the radio and saying, hey, y'all see that purple smoke out there? We're like, yeah, don't land there. Okay. So we ended up landing on the road, and I was doing a progression flight on the way down. One of our crew chiefs needed multi-ship, so it was a perfect opportunity to get an hour of multi-shift training on the way down to Shank. So I'm sitting on the back wall, and I've got two crew chiefs on in the left and right seats. And Chili asked me, he goes, "Hey man, what do I do?" And I was like, "Well, you're going to get out of the helicopter. You're going to look for bad dudes. And if you see bad dudes, you're going to shoot them in the fucking face." And he was like, what? And then we landed, and I got out of the aircraft, and I swear, as soon as my foot hit the pavement, the gates of hell opened up. There was just gunfire everywhere. We were getting shot at from every angle. Chili had to ask again. He's like, "What am I supposed to do?" And they're like, "Get out of the fucking helicopter, pull security." So he does. He gets out and pulls security. And I walked up to one of the Alabama guard dudes. I'm like, "Hey, where's the patient at?" And he kind of points off in the middle of this open field. And I was like, fuck it. So I had my M4 and my 9mm, and I just took off towards what I thought was a patient in the middle of this open field. I'm chugging along as fast as I can. In my head, the entire time I'm going, I hope I'm faster than Grandpa. And the reason why I was doing that is because my grandpa got wounded in World War II, and he said the only reason he got wounded is because he didn't run fast enough.
Damn.
So
Holy shit.
hauling ass across this open field with, I got good guys firing at me one side, and I got bad guys firing at me from the other side. And I'm just beating feet across, and I trip over something. I don't know what it was. Was my own 2 feet, a rock, a mine? I don't know. Face plant. And I remember Natalia was sitting on the left seat, and he saw me go down. He goes, "Oh shit, I think Troy just got shot." And in my head, I'm like, "Oh shit, I just got shot." So I stand up and I kind of like check myself over, and I'm like, "Well, I don't see anything, so that's good." And then I see a group of 5 muzzle flashes kind of coming at me from out of the wood line. So I engage those 5 muzzle flashes. And I'm like, why am I standing up in the middle of this field shooting at bad guys? So I run to the wadi that's right in front of me.
So when you return fire, what did you use?
The M4. So I jump down in the wadi, engage again. Those 5 muzzle flashes went away. You can believe what you want. Nobody can confirm or deny what actually happened, but so there's couple theories. One, I killed all 5 of them. The second one is that they ran out of ammo, or the third one is that I was effective enough getting them to stop shooting at me. Any of those scenarios doesn't matter. They stopped shooting at me. That's the end state. And then I realized that what I was running to was a gravesite in the middle of this field. And I was like, well, fuck, now where do I go? And off to my kind of left at about a 30-degree angle was...
How far are you from the aircraft?
At that point, about 300 yards.
Holy. So you're at least 3 football fields away from the aircraft by yourself in an open field.
Yep.
I know at this time your ass was feeling pretty, like your ass was probably clenched tight at this time.
Oh, yeah. So I see an Air Force EOD truck out there. So I run over to those guys, and I was like, hey, where's the patient at? And they kind of look at me like, who the fuck are you and how did you get here? And I was like, I'm a flight medic. I need to get to the patient. And they're like, he's over in that truck. So I run over to that truck and jump in the back. They got this whole like medical team in the back. This dude's on a spine board, fully immobilized. They're doing everything for him. What happened was he ran over a mine. It blew up underneath him. He had some neck and back pain, but no real significant injuries. And some more Polish guys start coming in the back of that little truck. One of them got shot in the face. It kind of like grazed his cheek. And then I think there was one that got shot in the hand or something, like nothing real significant. So once all the gunfire stopped, which was about the time I got to that vehicle, the tick only lasted after we landed maybe 5 minutes. It wasn't very long. But the entire convoy of like 56 trucks went black on ammo. They had shot every bullet they had at their disposal. There was a lot of gunfire. And so the decision was made, I'll just walk back. You guys drive and follow us back. So I'm walking back with an Air Force EOD guy, and I go to step down, and he goes, "Don't step there. There's a mine." And I was like, "Did I just run across the minefield?" And he goes, "Yeah, you dumbass."
Dang.
So we end up getting the patients back to the road. And then because we took so much fire, our higher headquarters wouldn't let the aircraft come back and get me. And I was on the ground for about 45 minutes until they could come back and land. Got the patients, we got them back to the FST. And
Dang, I didn't even know the story, bro.
that was the one and only time I ever fired my weapon in combat.
The aircraft had to leave you because the amount of fire.
Yep. So when I got down in the wadi, I was trying to call them on the radio to tell them to get the fuck out of there, because them being on the ground meant there was going to be more bullets. But when I got down I couldn't get a hold of them because my radio, when I fell, switched off that channel. So when I got down in the wadi, I saw them take off, and I was like, well, good, they're getting out of here. What's really funny about that story is it was my first time flying with Dan Pontius and Emilio Natalio, and Dan was the PC, and he looked at me before we left Shank, and he goes, "I will never leave you." Hour and a half later, there he goes.
Shit. I really want to know how you felt laying in that wadi. All right, you just returned fire. Your radio's not working. You're 300 yards away from the aircraft. Now it's taking off. You're not sure where the next series of American soldiers are at. Honestly, how did your ass feel at that time?
To be completely honest, I was happy that they were gone, because rotor blades on the ground bring enemy fire. If
a lot of attention.
Yep. So if they're gone off the ground, in my head, I'm thinking that the shooting is going to stop, and it didn't.
Damn.
Yeah. I remember Justin Horton was telling me, he goes, because they were our chase bird and they were kind of orbiting overhead. He goes, when we were flying to the west, we put our goggles up. When we'd fly back to the east, we had to put the goggles down because of that transition period.
Yeah. Yeah. When did the helicopter come back and get you?
It was about 30 minutes probably from the time that I finally got the patients to start walking back. So I was kind of embedded with the Polish conventional forces, just waiting on that aircraft to come back. Luckily they were with their own medical team. There wasn't really a lot of room in there for me, so I just let them do their thing, and then I just made sure I had a good kind of report when I was taking control of their care, and then taking them back to the FST.
What was your biggest takeaway from the 2012-2013 deployment?
After that one, I needed a break. That was a pretty, I wouldn't say bad deployment, but it was just it took a lot on, away from me. Like at that point, I'd already been through 3 deployments, and it was I guess 17, 18, 12, and a 9. So and they were all kind of back. Well, the last 2 were back to back. And I felt like I just needed to step away for a little bit and take some time for myself.
Yeah. And I'm happy you did that, man. And it's something that I wish a lot of other people would do. You realize it, and once again, I'm happy that you did that for yourself. And you said something that really hit me. You said it wasn't really a bad deployment. I think as a medevac, a flight medic, I get it. There's different levels of, kinetic activity and the things you see.
The mindset you almost have to have is that every ground medic is going to have 1, maybe 2 very critical patients throughout their entire deployment, right? We are seeing all of those critical patients every day. So each platoon has a medic out with them. They get 1 or 2 bad ones, but we're picking up from that entire brigade or that entire area. So we're seeing my 10-11 deployment. We were so busy as a company in RC South that we are getting into double letters for the mission numbers. So they'll go medical mission 01, 02, A, B, C, D, all the way through Z. We were restarting. I think the furthest I saw was we get to like A, J, I think, Alpha Juliet. So, I mean, that's 30 something missions in a single day. Granted, that was at the time was over 12 aircraft, but that's
still a lot of work.
That's a lot of work.
So you get home from the 13 deployment, you realize, I really need a break. So what happened next?
I went down to Fort Rucker to teach.
And where'd you teach at?
The School of Aviation Medicine.
Nice. What was your primary role there?
So when I first got down there, I was doing quality assurance, quality control. So I'd go sit down and listen to an instructor teach, and then I would do like a critique on them. I did that for about 6 months. And then I was also like our online learning guy. So I managed all the Blackboard and stuff like that. And then I moved down to the flight medic course, where I taught flight medic, the joint and route care course. And then towards the end, I helped stand up phase 3 of what is the current pipeline for the flight paramedic program. So we were the operationalizing the flight medic knowledge, right? So phase 1 is paramedic school, phase 2 is critical care, and then phase 3 they'd come to Fort Rucker, and we would teach them how to put it all together, how to use it in an aviation environment. So I did that that was at the end of my time at Rucker, but it was really good experience to learn how to build classes for the Army.
Yeah. I think it's always a good experience. I tell people, when you go from Force Com to TRADOC, you take all that experience that you learned in combat and you bring it to the schoolhouse. I think that's a very good transition for a lot of senior guys, especially when we need a break, because everybody needs a break.
Yeah.
Did you get support from the chain of command where you're like, or from HRC when you said, hey, listen, it's time for me to take a break. I need to go to Rucker for a little while.
I kind of backdoored the system on that one. So,
hey, sometimes you have to do that, man.
Danny Stevenson was my platoon sergeant, and he was friends with the first sergeant at USAM. And we were it was, I was at 4.5 years, and we knew I was getting ready to PCS somewhere. We just didn't know where. I've always had the mindset you have to take charge of your own career. So I talked to Danny about it a little bit, and I was like, do I want to recruit? Do I want to go teach? I don't want to be a drill. I know that. And, I needed a broadening assignment because I was a staff sergeant. I needed to do something to get promoted to start first class. So he's like, well, I'm friends with First Sergeant Schultz down at USAM. We'll see if I can get you in. And I was like, yeah. So he gets a hold of First Sergeant Schultz, and he does a by name request for me to HRC. At the same time, I pinged HRC and said, hey, I want to go teach. So they were like, oh, this lines up perfectly, 1 for 1. You want to go there, they want you, and they put me on assignment.
Damn, that's good, man.
Yeah.
Timing, it's knowing the right people, and timing always plays a critical part in life, especially when in the military, when you're trying to take a break and, get down to Fort Rucker. How was that break for you?
It was good. I worked with a lot of great people, learned a lot from the other instructors. Didn't know it, kind of knew it at the time because, I went to the flight medic course and there was a Navy instructor down there, but I didn't realize the breadth of their influence, I guess. So when I got down there was a Navy chief that was working in the flight medic branch, and then they replaced him with 2 petty officer, 2 E5s, and getting to learn their side of the whole mission, right? So primarily they were training Navy SAR corpsmen in flight medicine, but then we'd also get the green side FMF corpsmen that were doing it for the Marines. So it was kind of nice to see that different aspect of things, and I learned a lot from those squids that worked with me.
Yeah. What was your biggest takeaway from Fort Rucker and being in TRADOC?
You got to be humble. There's always somebody out there that just knows something more than you, and it may not come from where you expect it, right? In anybody that does flight medicine, they've experienced different things. They do things differently. And you can always learn tips and tricks on, hey, this is how I do this. And if you go in there with an ego saying that I know everything, you're going to get humbled real quick. One way or another. It's either going to be an instructor, or it's going to be a student. And that was, I got humbled by students a couple times. Not because I thought I knew everything, but because I just wasn't as read up on something as maybe they were. So my very first class I taught was G-forces for the initial entry rotor wing course. And I walked up there, I stumbled through everything. I did not teach it how it should be taught. First time in front of the students, it was like 100 plus students in that IRW class. And I got ripped apart in my first AAR. They're like, that bald dude that taught G-forces sucked. And the NCIC pulled me aside. He's like, hey man, I'm not going to take this to the dean, but I just want you to know that they thought you sucked. So I took that as not a challenge, but as I need to get better. So I went and I learned everything that you could learn about G-forces and how the military studied G-forces and where we are, how we are. I learned, I want to say his name was Colonel Stapp. He was an Air Force 06 that would literally strap himself to rockets on a railroad track and expose himself to G-forces and see what the body could actually take. The amount of stress and rigor that man put himself through just to better aircraft design, really. And it's not as well known as it should be. Because what the Air Force was finding is that we were having pilots survive the crash but die because the cockpit collapsed on them. Because we were building aircraft cockpits to sustain like a 20G crash or 10G crash when the body can take up to 80 Gs forward and back. So, or I think it's 80 forward, 60 back, something like that. Can't remember. I'm not teaching the class anymore, so I kind of dumped it out. But we weren't building the aircraft sturdy enough to withstand the crash. So now, like all the airframe, Army, Navy, Air Force, they are all built to a much higher standard, so that way we're not dying after the crash.
Damn. I didn't even know that myself. So you wrap it up at Fort Rucker. How'd you get to Hawaii?
So, again, call HRC back when you could call them and get your way. They said, hey, I initially called them and said, I want to go back to Alaska. And branch manager was like, well, I don't have anything in Alaska. I was like, but I just got off the phone with the first sergeant and he's got 3 slots up there. He's like, well, I don't have any racks. So, but since you're on the phone, you're going to pick where you're going to go. He's like, you're either going to go to Honduras, or you're going to go to Korea. And I was like, well, I'll take Hondo all day. And he kind of hemmed and hawed around a little bit and was like, well, I don't want to send you to Hondo as a brand new Sergeant First Class, taking over the detachment sergeant slot. And I was like, well, you offered it, and that's what I'm going to take. And he was trying to get me to say, well, no, you can send me to Korea. And I wasn't going to do that. So I hear him kind of typing on his computer a little bit. And he's like, well, I'd have to move the report date, but I could send you to Wheeler instead. And I was like, in Hawaii? And he goes, yeah. Oh, okay. Send me there.
How long were you in Hawaii for?
3 years.
Any deployments?
I did a Pacific Pathways.
What's that?
You go out to the Pacific, and it's kind of like the UCOM rotation. only a year in the Pacific. They're a little bit shorter, so they're anywhere between 3 and like 6 months. And you just partner up with whatever country that you're going to. So we ended up doing 2 simultaneously. There were 6 countries. It was, if I remember right, it was Australia, Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, Japan. Yeah, something like that.
You got to visit all those countries.
Yeah, so Singapore, I didn't get to visit all of them. We took 2 platoons and we kind of split them up and what would work best for getting the right coverages and the right people in the right spots. So I ended up getting, Singapore didn't want any air assets, so we didn't do anything in Singapore. The ground force only did stuff in Singapore. I ended up doing Malaysia and Japan. And then the other platoon, they ran Australia, Indonesia, and Thailand. That was the other one. So they ran Australia, Thailand, and Indonesia. So there was kind of some mismatching and stuff going on, and basically the platoons became organic again at the last one. So my platoon was in Japan. The other platoon was in Indonesia for the end.
What'd you guys do there?
It depended on what exercises they were running. So when I was in Malaysia, we did Kara Strike, and it was mostly a ground force thing. But we were there to provide medical support if anybody got hurt or injured or whatever. It's kind of, imagine it like a little mini JRTC.
Okay.
We just didn't play with like the miles gear and stuff like that. We weren't really in the scenarios unless somebody actually got hurt.
What was your most memorable moment at Wheeler?
There's a couple of them, a couple good ones, but probably my first PTA rotation. So we did medevac coverage on Oahu and I'm going to screw it up, Pokahula training area, PTA we called it. It's on the Big Island.
So you went back to the medevac. I just want to.
Yep.
So you went back. You left Rucker, went to Wheeler. Now you're back in the flight company doing medevac stuff.
So my very first PTA rotation, it was hard for platoon sergeants to get out there just because you're out there for a week at a time.
What's PTA?
It's the Pokahula training area on the Big Island. So I get out there, and the other crew had just left. It's about a 2-hour flight between Oahu and the Big Island. And my crew chief was up doing our PMD on our aircraft. And we had an earthquake hit. And he's up on the tail boom, and he said he just watched the waves of the earth come across the training area into the end of the airfield. And just shaking the shit out of our little hooch that we had. And then that's when the volcano erupted. That's when Kilauea erupted.
Wow.
Back in, I don't remember what year that was, 18. And so the volcano erupts, and we're like, oh, we're going to do some civil support here. Like what needs to happen? The brigade ended up sending out a bunch of aircraft just in case there was some civil support that was needed, which none of it was. I don't think we flew anybody between any of the aircraft that went out. But just being there when the volcano erupted, and then the USGS, the United States Geological Survey, had asked us to fly up Mauna Loa and check it out to see if there's any signs of eruption coming from that volcano. Because if Kilauea erupts, the chances of Mauna Loa going are higher, and if Mauna Loa goes, that's really catastrophic for that island.
Yeah.
So they had us fly up and just take a bunch of pictures for them. So we got to fly up over the cauldron of Mauna Loa, which you would be surprised how large that thing is. I remember there's like a 10 by 12 shack on the rim that one of their guys stays in just to kind of monitor stuff. And it looked like just little tiny speck on the rim compared to how big this cauldron was. Yeah. So we're just flying around looking at all of the vents that they gave us, kind of a not specific flight path, but a pretty like, hey, we want you to hit these areas. You could just see all the vents steaming off, and it was kind of a cool experience.
Yeah. Damn, I wish I had an experience like that. Not too many times you go fly around volcanoes, at least
Yeah.
active ones, right? Damn. What was your biggest takeaway? Now you've left Force.com, you went to TRADOC, now you're at Wheeler, not really, a combat type of place. What was your biggest takeaway from Wheeler?
So that was my first platoon sergeant gig, and I learned a lot about that side of my job, just being how to take better care of my soldiers. I had a lot of soldier issues, and learning more the paperwork and admin side of being now an administrator, because as the Sergeant First Class up, essentially that's what you are. Getting more away from the job and more into that aspect of everything.
Yeah, that leadership role where you're now pretty much a teacher at this point.
Yep.
How did you feel? Because I know a lot of guys struggle with that transition with, you're not a worker anymore. You're now more of a leader / manager. How did you feel with that transition?
It was overwhelming at first, because, I'd gone from having to be in charge of like 6 dudes to now being in charge of 26 dudes. So with that, obviously a lot more problems, and just coming from no responsibility at TRADOC to now having a platoon, getting back in the swing of actually doing the flight medicine again and doing the leadership aspect. That I leaned a lot on my first sergeant and the other platoon sergeants.
That's good. That's good. You had good leadership to help you and at least mentor you in that situation. How do you think that shaped you as a leader, making that change so fast?
Well, I got thrown straight into the fire right away. So I had a soldier get arrested at a battalion ball within 30 days of me getting on the island.
Yeesh.
Yeah. So
Why did you get arrested, if you don't mind?
It was, I'm trying to put it. There was a disagreement between him and his spouse. And
okay.
She made some accusations, and he was acquitted of all charges. We'll just leave it at that. It was a big mess.
Was alcohol involved in the situation?
It always is.
Yeah. I tell people, man, don't do shit when you're drinking. It's just going to make shit 10 times worse. Now you're a leader. You get the platoon under your belt. When did you get promoted? You got promoted to a master sergeant, correct?
Nope, never made it.
Never made it. Okay.
I just got put in a first sergeant position.
So after you leave Wheeler, you go to Fort Drum. And for the audience, this man has been to the coldest places in the Army. Alaska, Fort Drum. People like me, there's no way in hell I was trying to go to those places. Did you volunteer to go to Fort Drum?
So, no, not really. Because my son's autistic, they have to send the your EFMP out to all the different places. They're supposed to send them to everybody, and whoever's got a position available. Well, when I was leaving Wheeler, they only sent my EFMP to Bragg, and Bragg came back and denied my EFMP. Surprisingly, like, you would think that they would have plenty of.
Yeah, that is surprising.
Yeah, so they denied it. So then my branch manager sent it to Drum next, and I was like, "There's no way I'm going to get Drum. There's nothing up there," and I got Drum. He asked if I was cool with that, and I was like, "I don't have much of a choice, but if as long as they got the services for my son, I don't care. I'll go."
And this is another prime example of the level of dedication and the level of sacrifice fathers will make. Especially a lot of fathers make a sacrifice in their career to make sure that their children and their family are taken care of. So once again, shout out to you, Drew. You show up to Fort Drum. How'd your wife feel about going to Fort Drum?
I think she was cool with it. She didn't really tell me there was much of a problem. But we also knew that I was going to be going out the door as soon as I got there.
Well, you got
Because
deployed again? Is that what you're telling me?
I knew that they were on the patch chart and getting ready to roll out the door when I got put on assignment. So I was trying to actually leave Hawaii early so I could get there, get established, and then go on the deployment from the start. None of that happened. I ended up getting there when I was supposed to get there, and then just being a late deployer, which actually was probably better.
I'm tracking 4 deployments. That's how many you had?
Yep.
And where was this deployment?
Back to Afghanistan.
What part?
But I was up in Mez so I kind of did a counterclockwise rotation around Afghanistan for my 3 deployments.
Medevac again?
Yep.
How was that deployment compared to the 12 and the 10 one?
Way easier, kind of. So, in the 6 months that I was there, I didn't fly a single patient.
Really?
Yep. So I showed up and I started progression. In the middle of progression is when the reduction in violence went into place.
What year was this?
2020.
2020. Okay.
Yeah. So they had to be creative in getting me complete on my progression. The ironic thing was the guy that was progressing me was one of the guys I had progressed on that 12-13 deployment.
It's crazy how the Army works.
Yeah. So because of that, he also knew that I was a good crew member and that we'll just get through the things that we got to get through, and then you'll go off to Mez and be happy. So I got up to Mez. I was probably after about a month, but then COVID hit, and we really weren't doing anything once COVID hit. We did fly 1 or 2 COVID patients, but the amount of things that we put on ourselves as far as decontamination and like prepping and like notification and all that stuff went, the ground forces we were supporting decided it'd be easier to use Nazgul, the German medevac. They were first up anyway, but they would call them and not us because they were easier to work with, which is fine with us because we didn't have to decontaminate the whole damn aircraft after a mission.
You had to decontaminate the whole aircraft.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
So we would get as light as we could. We'd take as much stuff out that we didn't need. Crew chief and medic were flying in Tyvek suits, like full on biohazard. It was a mess.
Damn. Looking back to what COVID is now, how do you really feel about that?
I thought back then that we were overreacting. And especially now, it's kind of validating that feeling.
How was the military during COVID?
It was interesting. So we, finished that deployment. We ended up getting extended an extra 30 days because the unit coming over, with quarantines and all that fun crap. Then we got back and we had to quarantine. We quarantined in Kuwait for like 7 days, and we get back and had to quarantine for another 2 weeks at Drum. And then, we got back, did our reverse SRP stuff, got back to normal life. But there was a lot of times where we'd split the company into red and blue teams. So it was, all right, red team's here today, blue team's here tomorrow, back and forth. There was a lot of telework, just not a lot getting done, and commanders still expecting things to get done. Like, but we can't work. You're not letting us be in the office. You're not letting us do this or that. And then shortly thereafter, I took over as the company first sergeant because I was the only senior NCO left in the company.
Everybody else was retiring?
So the first sergeant that we had left, she was PCSing down to Fort Sam. Another guy was going SFAB. And then the other ones had PCSed out during the deployment or whatever they had left were already leaving. So I basically came down to, I was the only guy left standing. So I took over the company during COVID, which made things weird and kind of difficult at to manage at the beginning, especially because me and the commander, we were just there every day. So even if we did the red team, blue team thing, we could still contaminate everybody.
Yeah.
The battalion commander wanted us there in the office every day.
The irony of the situation, huh?
Yep.
What was your biggest takeaway from being a drum?
I think at that point I did more like trying to rein people in, because I saw a lot of me as a young platoon sergeant in them. So people would tend to high side when something bad happens. After, my guy got arrested in Hawaii, I took the stance of like, let's calm down for a second. Let's take a step back. Let's breathe. Let's figure out actually what's going on. So I brought that to drum to kind of like bring people back to reality a little bit more, and don't high side as much. Hopefully some of those guys took that and, continue to do that. But it's one of those hard things for people to like grasp, especially when higher commands are high siding on everything.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest things I've learned being in the Army, now that I'm a civilian, that things aren't a big deal as people make them.
No.
I'm like, yo, take a fucking chill pill. Like, punch the clock, right? That's the theory we always would say in an aircraft when something would happen. Punch the clock. Relax, man. Like, let's think this through. Let's not get irrational or make any rash decisions right now. So you leave drum, you go to Fort Riley. You go back to Fort Riley. Why Fort Riley?
That's where they stuck me. I was trying to retire at drum, and then
really?
18 and a half years. So I got not a great number on the promotion list for 8. And with how the new marketplace system is working, I was seeing people, once the marketplace closed, I was seeing people get assignments within 2 weeks. If they didn't get an assignment within 2 weeks, I got a notice saying that they're being bumped to the next market. Well,
and can you, to old heads like me, like I have no idea what marketplace is. What essentially is that?
So it's kind of like how the officers do theirs, right? You guys would rank base, all the duty positions or whatever. But then you guys would get like interviews and stuff like that, right? So we don't get any of the interview stuff. It was just like, here's 127 duty positions that you can go to. You have to rank them 1 through 127. And then HRC says that they put them in the system that way. And then it just kind of picks where you go. So my first 4 or 5 choices were all Fort Drum, because I wanted to stay at drum. I even told HRC, I'm trying to stay at drum. Leave me alone. I'll go to a brigade if that's what you need me to do. I'll drop my identifiers so that way you can just keep me here. Everything was stable. Son had his therapies. Everything was Gucci. And
you wanted to stay there for your son?
Yeah.
Okay.
And my daughter, really, because we told her that was our last move and she was going to be able to graduate up there. As soon as that promotion list came out in January, within like 5 days, I had orders to come back to Riley, and I couldn't deny them because I was under 19 years still. So we made a plan and figured out what we were going to do, and just moved out here. I ended up having to do a 95-day leave form because there was a IPSA blackout that was supposed to happen. So they wouldn't be able to cut orders between the time I was supposed to leave drum and when I was supposed to arrive here. So I had to fight with the military processing division at Fort Drum to cut my orders because I had all that leave saved up.
You had 95 days. Is that what you just said?
Yeah. Had a 95-day leave form coming here.
Holy shit.
I ended up taking 47 days because that brownout never actually happened. So they allowed me to sign in early. So I signed in September 30th. So that put me to where I could drop my retirement packet for October 1st of this year. And I was misguided on how the retirement pay works. So I was like, we'll just stay until December 31st and get out January 1st. So I ended up staying an extra couple months than I had to, but
Yeah.
it's
Shout out to your wife, man, continuously supporting you through all those moves and hell, retiring from the Army. Just so you know, 21 years in the military is it's a long time. It flies by pretty fast, but it's still a lot of sacrifice and dedication. At what point, what was the decision, and at what point did you realize, all right, it's time for me to retire?
I made that decision about halfway through my first sergeant time. I'm like, I'm done.
Hmm.
I was burned out.
And
Didn't really want.
you were at drum at this point, right?
I just wasn't able to drop my packy yet because I wasn't a year out. And so I'd made that decision then. My wife was supportive. It was just the way the cookie crumbled. So when I showed up here, everybody already knew that I was trying to retire and that I gotten screwed over. So my platoon coming, when I got here, they were all scared. They were all like, either this dude's going to be checked out and not do anything, or he's going to be a complete dick. And I was somewhere in the middle.
So what did you do at Riley? How long were you there for?
2 years.
And you were just there to pretty much show up, retire, and walk off into the sunset.
Yeah, except for they decided to get a UCOM rotation out of me in there.
What's UCOM rotation?
I ended up going to Germany, but it's a rotation kind of like Pacific Pathways, only you're in those other countries and all over Europe just doing exercises and rotations with U.S. partner forces.
So 21 years in the Army. How would you sum up your military career?
In reality, it was pretty fulfilling. I got to see a lot. I think I just did the math the other day, and it was like I got to see 17 countries, I think. A good chunk of it was on the UCOM rotation because we ported in Greece, and then we flew up the was it the Baltic Sea there along the coast. We flew up to Germany. So just got to see a whole bunch of countries that I wouldn't have gotten to see otherwise. So I've really been almost all the way, almost circumnavigated the globe. We never thought that would be the case in the Army. I thought that was more the Navy's thing. Sail the 7 seas, see the world in the Navy or whatever. But I got to see the Army see the world in the Army, which was a nice surprise. Really nice to see other countries and cultures and how things are handled. Just made me, I think, overall a better person.
Any regrets with your military career?
No, not that I can really think of. I got to expand myself, make myself more marketable, which is one of the things that I would suggest for anybody that, especially if you're a 68 whiskey, going out, get that additional skill identifier, make yourself more marketable for when you do get out. Because you're going to get out eventually. You gotta set yourself up.
Real quickly, let's talk about these notable achievements. That Angel on the Battlefield.
So it's a YMCA recognition, which I didn't even know that the YMCA did anything like that until I got it.
Hell, I didn't know that.
Yep. So they recognized one soldier from each brigade, and I don't think it's just a Campbell thing, but they did it. I know they did it at Campbell. So it was one soldier for each brigade would get recognized by the YMCA every year. They did a big gala in November. So I had already PCS to Fort Rucker. I had to come back for the ceremony. But it's a recognition for doing something extraordinary on the battlefield. And I got it for our mission with Colonel Walraith.
Really?
I think he's the one that recommended me for the award. And I'm 90% sure he was the one that recommended Andrew Six to get the award. And he got it. We both got recognized the same year, but he got it from his previous deployment when he was with 2nd Brigade 101. Yeah. So when we went up there for our award, it looked kind of like, well, why did 101 Cab get 2 guys? Well, it was really that Andrew got it from a year before. I got it from this year, and it was from still 2 different brigades.
Shit. Why two guys from 101st? Because the 101st is a badass place, man. What about the Order of St. Michael? What's that about?
Order of St. Michael is a award given to Army aviators that make a significant contribution to Army aviation in their career. So I was awarded it because of my contributions when I was at Fort Rucker, and then also because I was a company first sergeant at Fort Drum. Yeah, so typically it'll be like a first sergeant or above type of achievement award. You can get at a lower rank staff. I've seen staff sergeants get it. And I've seen like CW2s, normally it's a CW3 and like a major and above type of thing. But you can get it as long as you have those met the requirements according to your chapter president.
What about the Order of Medical Merit?
So the Order of Military Medical Merit is a more centralized board process. You have to be recommended by somebody that has it. And it's a difficult achievement to gain in the medical field. It's essentially the equivalent to the Order of St. Michael, but only now it's for AMED. And spending the 21 years in AMED, teaching at Fort Rucker, helping build the pipeline, phase 3 of the pipeline for the flight medic course, and being a platoon sergeant for so long in a company, first sergeant for a while in a medical company, met the requirements for the board to see that I was fit to earn that achievement.
Another thing I want to talk about, which I thought was very cool, when I went down to Fort Rucker as a SEER instructor at the Aviation Museum, Troy, there's I don't know what to call it, but there's a display of you essentially. And it was the mission of August 8th. And I just want to, if you could tell the story, well, hell, I don't know the story, and I would like the audience to know the story. How did you get a display in the Army Aviation Museum? And two, you put on the paperwork that your uniform is on that display. So I'm just wondering, how did all that come about?
So kind of right place, right time is really how it happened. It's not because I'm a badass or anything like that.
Well, you are a badass. Let's not downplay that, okay?
So what happened was, because I was on assignment already to go to Fort Rucker, the curator of the museum had reached out to First Sergeant Schultz at USASAM he's like, hey, you guys train flight medics down here. You're an integral part of Army aviation, but we don't have anything to display flight medics or flight medicine in the museum. I'd like to do a piece. He's like, but his requirement was he wanted somebody that was currently deployed or recently deployed, and he wanted all of their gear, and to do kind of a backstory and stuff on them. So, First Sergeant Schultz reached out to Danny Stevenson. Danny's like, hey, Troy's already going down there. Why don't you just use his instead of trying to find somebody else? And because they wanted somebody to be there to help build the display and all that. So he's like, why don't you just use Troy's stuff? And the curator was cool with it. So when I left Campbell, I took all of my LC gear down to the museum, donated it, and then helped them build the display.
Damn.
Yeah. So it was basically right place, right time.
Yeah. Hey, that's life though, right?
Yeah.
If you guys are down in, it's called Fort Sill now. If you're at the Army Aviation Museum, go check out his display. It's pretty legit. I was very humbled and honored to see it when I got there. I was like, man, look at Troy, man, setting a standard everywhere he goes.
The kind of the cool thing about it is that my, that flight medic display is right in front of Mike Novosels's uniform.
Damn.
Yeah. So on the back wall, right next to where all the pictures and stuff are, is where his uniform was hanging. At least that's where it was when last time I was down.
So go check it out, guys. You get a chance. What's the key lesson or takeaway do you hope for listeners to gain from your story?
Just be humble, keep your head down, grind, be the best that you can be. Always look for that opportunity to make yourself better. it'll pay off in the long run.
When you got out the Army, you're newly out of the Army, right?
Yeah, another 35 days, I'll be out.
So you still technically in the Army right now?
Technically still am.
All that
Until
leave, huh?
December 31st, I'm out.
What what's what's the biggest thing you're realizing right now that you're a newly civilian, technically?
Uh, it's different. The civilian world's different. Um, for me, when I was starting the interview process for a couple jobs that I was interviewing for, and they started calling me Troy, I was like, "Who the fuck are you talking to?" Because I hadn't heard that name in a long time. Um, but yeah, it's different. For me going into EMS, it's not as different as like if I were to go to a corporate world, right? It's a lot of the same type of personalities and antics, right? So military bust each other's balls all the time. Same thing happens when you're a first responder, whether you're cop, fire, EMS, whatever. There's a lot of that same camaraderie.
That's good. That's good that you still have that. That's one of the greatest things about the Army. We always talk about that camaraderie and how we always gave each other a hard time. And it's just something that you always feel like you got a brother or sister on your left and right. So that was great. One thing I want to touch upon, your mental health. How you dealing with that? How are you feeling with that? What have you done to get help? And what advice would you give to younger soldiers or anybody out there dealing with mental?
So I put it off for a long time because of my flight career. I didn't want to stop flying. And I knew that if I sought mental health assistance, there was a good chance that I was going to be done.
Correct.
But there's resources out there that you can use that are anonymous, Military One Source and all that. Utilize those things. Whether you think you need it or not, go get help. Go seek therapy. If nothing else, just to have somebody to talk to and get through some of those things. I didn't start going to see a psychologist until March of this last year, when my physical body decided I was pretty much done flying. And then I was like, hey, let me go start taking care of my mental health as well. It's been great. It's kind of weird to start talking about my feelings and all that stuff. But go early, go often. As MFLACs are good because they don't report anything unless you're a threat to yourself or others. But
yeah, that's one of the biggest things, that a commonality that I'm seeing right now. A lot of us aviation guys, we just dealt with it because we didn't want to get grounded. But there comes a point where you just have to be like, man, all right, something's going to have to give, right? So once again, huge shout out to your wife. Huge shout out to you to keep getting help. So I see here you create your own hot sauce. How did that come about?
I don't know how it came about. I can't remember exactly how it came about, but I saw it on a website or Facebook page or something, and I was like, I like hot sauce. Let me give this a go. So I bought some habaneros and kind of threw together some things that I thought would taste good together and gave it a shot. Actually did pretty, in my opinion, pretty good on my first couple of batches. People at Fort Drum seem to like it.
Is this something you're going to start batching, bottling and selling?
I thought about it. I don't think I'm at that, like, not, I wouldn't say level yet, but I'm not at that stage yet. So I still got some like recipes to work out. Still have a lot of learning to do. And then probably the biggest hurdle is finding a legitimate place to do it, because like you got to have a commercial kitchen, and Kansas state law won't allow me to just, do self-fermented foods that I made at home.
Yeah. 3 words to describe yourself.
Honest, loyal, and stubborn.
Why those 3 words?
Honesty, I think, just is one of those things that's been instilled in me throughout my life from my parents on all the way through. It's just, bad news doesn't get better with time. So just be honest. You got to be honest with yourself, and you got to be honest with the other people around you, especially if you want respect. I'm loyal to if you give me loyalty, I'm going to be loyal right back to you. And sometimes it's to a fault. I'm a little loyal to people that maybe don't deserve it. And then stubborn. I've always been stubborn. Yeah, ask my mom. I've always been stuck in my ways, and this is what I'm going to do, and this is how I'm going to do it.
What legacy do you want to leave for your children, or anybody else that you've led? Like, what do you want to be remembered as? What's the legacy you want to leave on the world?
I just want them, specifically my kids. I just want them to be proud of me and what I did, and know that I did what I did for them. And I want them to be better than me. I think every parent wants that for their kids. And that's all I really care about, is that they're proud of me and that they know that I was there for them and doing the things I did for them.
What was one of the hardest decisions you've ever had to make in the military?
Probably just to enlist the first time. But every re-enlistment, except for the first one, every one after that, I was getting out of the Army, and then some life happened, and there I was staying again.
What would you tell 20-year-old Troy now?
Probably focus on college. I probably would, if I would have pulled my head out of my ass earlier and, focused and applied myself like I should have. I don't know if I'd be a vet today, but I'd probably be in a little bit better place.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, do you think if you did focus on college and you stayed, do you think you'd be where you're at right now?
No, I think if I would have, I don't know if I would enjoy what I would be doing. That's part of the reason why I stayed enlisted and I didn't go become like a PA or anything like that, is because I really, truly enjoyed my job and what I was doing. And by the time I stopped liking it as much, it was too late.
Yeah.
So
do you think things happen for a reason?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very profound now that you say that. I agree with you. I think things happen for a reason, and I think the higher being, whatever you believe in, it sets you on a course to get you to show your true potential. And that's something that's deep. That's deep right there. So what is Troy doing now that you're out the Army?
I'm a paramedic at a local county EMS service.
How's that going? How long you been doing that for?
I started about a month and a half ago, and it's going pretty well. I've learned a decent amount so far. Actually, Thanksgiving is my first off the leash shift that I have. So I'm excited to see where this goes, and just continue to keep learning.
All right, brother. My best advice to you, from friend to friend and one military retiree to the other, try to find some time to just take a break, man. A lot of the guys, even including me, I took 2 years off when I retired from the Army. And just always, my biggest ask of you is just to continue to take care of your mental health, all right? You may find yourself one day it's gonna start, like, when you're really out of the Army, you're gonna realize, like, holy shit, there's no more Army. And just make sure you always lean on people like me, other friends. Anything you need from me, let me know, all right? And just keep taking care of yourself, man.
I appreciate it. Sounds good. I said, you too, take care of yourself, and if you need anything from me, let me know.
Yeah. I appreciate you being on the show. I appreciate the impact you had on my life, the memories we have together. Like I said, you're one of I tell everybody, I say in every episode, flight medics are my heroes. The things I've seen you guys do are just true, courageous. I mean, you guys are some special human beings. So just keep up the great work. It's an honor to call you friend, and just keep pushing, man. You're in a new transition in life. Spend as much time as you can with your wife, your babies, and just hell, bro, your retirement, everything you're getting right now, you deserve it, all right? And just know that. But besides that, brother, you have a good day. This is Jason Santiago with Heroes Have Wings. Thank you for tuning in to Heroes Have Wings, where we honor the extraordinary stories of grit, sacrifice, and resilience. Remember, every hero's journey starts with a single step, so take yours today. If you love this episode, like, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Until next time, keep pushing limits, breaking barriers, and living your truth. I'm your host, Jason Santiago, and this is Heroes Have Wings, where legends rise.